Welcome to Democracy Roundtable. Today we're tackling a range of issues, from the ongoing war with Iran and its global implications, to domestic policy shifts under the Trump administration. It's a lot to unpack, so let's get right to it. Chris, your thoughts as we dive in?
Thanks, Kai. It's definitely a complex landscape. The through line seems to be an increasing concentration of power and a disregard for established norms, both at home and abroad.
Precisely. Let's start with the situation in Iran. President Trump is claiming total obliteration militarily. That's quite a statement, given that just 2 weeks into the conflict, his administration is reportedly facing significant political and strategic challenges. Chris, what's your reading of the situation?
I think there's a disconnect between the rhetoric and the reality. We're seeing reports of escalating tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, and the administration is struggling to maintain a cohesive narrative. It reminds me of how things went in Vietnam.
That's a chilling comparison. And speaking of international relations, let's bring in Maya. Maya, we're seeing reactions from around the globe to the Iran conflict. What are you seeing and hearing from your sources?
It's a mixed bag, Kai. European leaders are criticizing the U.S. easing of Russian oil sanctions, viewing it as undermining the effort to isolate Russia and potentially destabilizing energy markets. And in the U.K., the Liberal Democrat leader is calling for an independent nuclear deterrent, citing concerns about relying on the U.S. under Trump. There's a growing sense of unease about American foreign policy, and a feeling many countries have to fend for themselves now.
That's a significant shift in sentiment. The idea of the UK needing its own independent nuclear deterrent because they can't rely on the US is pretty alarming. It also shows how much Trump's foreign policy impacts alliances. And Maya, what about the UK Prime Minister's reaction to the Iran strikes? Any insight there?
Well, Keir Starmer's stance has drawn both praise and criticism. Some see it as a departure from blindly following U.S. foreign policy, while conservatives are not happy. It highlights the delicate balancing act for any leader these days, navigating international alliances while also catering to domestic public opinion. It's worth noting that public sentiment in the UK is largely against the military action in Iran.
Thanks, Maya. Chris, this seems to be resonating across the pond, with reports of British conservatives increasingly aligning with the American right.
Yes, it's a worrying trend. British conservatism has historically been far more pragmatic and less ideological than the American right. This shift suggests a real abandonment of key aspects of British identity and a willingness to adopt divisive American culture war tactics.
It's almost like an ideological colonization. Let's switch gears to domestic issues. The FCC chair is threatening broadcast licenses over Iran war coverage. Andre, what's your take on this blatant attempt to stifle dissent? Absolutely, it sets a dangerous precedent. And speaking of dangerous precedents, the Trump administration is planning to expand migrant family detention at a Louisiana airport. Elena, what are the implications of this expansion, especially given the history of alleged violations at existing facilities?
It's a continuation of a cruel and inhumane policy, Kai. Expanding family detention, particularly at a facility near one with a history of alleged violations, raises serious concerns about due process, transparency, and the well-being of vulnerable families and children. We're talking about detaining people indefinitely, often without adequate legal representation or medical care. And the fact that this is being funded through something called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act just adds insult to injury.
The Orwellian language is just staggering. And Elena, we are seeing the human cost of these policies. A doctor at the border is reporting a public health crisis due to severe injuries among migrants at the border wall. What can you say about that?
It is heartbreaking, Kai. The doctor's account highlights the direct link between border enforcement policies and increased violence and suffering. These policies are intentionally designed to deter migrants, but they're also needlessly endangering lives and limiting access to care. The administration is creating a crisis and then blaming the victims.
It's a vicious cycle. And it seems like the administration is also taking aim at environmental protections, ordering a restart of oil operations off the California coast. This decision clearly flies in the face of climate concerns. Chris, what does this say about the administration's priorities?
It underscores their unwavering commitment to fossil fuels, regardless of the environmental consequences. It's a short-sighted approach that prioritizes immediate profits over long-term sustainability, and it sets up a clear conflict with state authorities in California, which have been pushing for renewable energy sources.
The potential legal challenges are definitely something to watch. We're also seeing some troubling news about a lawyer linked to a Trump pardon being charged with attempted extortion. Is anything sacred anymore?
It raises serious questions about the integrity of the pardon process and the potential for abuse of power. This isn't just about one bad apple. It's about a system that seems increasingly susceptible to corruption.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the Surgeon General nominee clarifying her stance on the measles vaccine after her confirmation hearing. It's disheartening that even basic public health measures are being politicized. Okay, one last topic. The U.S. Embassy in Venezuela has reopened after 7 years.
That's a really interesting development. It signals closer ties with the interim President Rodriguez's government. It's hard not to see this as primarily motivated by access to Venezuela's oil reserves. What does this mean for democracy there?
That's the big question. It's a complicated situation with potentially far-reaching consequences. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Chris, any final thoughts?
Just that we need to remain vigilant and hold those in power accountable. The trends we're seeing are deeply concerning, and it's up to all of us to defend democratic principles.
Well said. That's all for this week's Democracy Roundtable. Join us next week for more discussions on the state of our democracy.